Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. My name is Lena Morgan, and for most of my life, I believed that love and loyalty were enough to earn a place in my family's heart. I thought that if I just kept helping, kept giving, kept showing up, they would finally see me. But everything changed the day I drove past my parents' house and saw the party. There were balloons floating in the spring breeze, cars lining the street, and a giant banner stretched across the front yard that read, "Congratulations, Caleb Morgan, our pride and joy." No one had called me. No one had invited me. And yet, as I sat there, frozen behind the wheel, the sharpest pain wasn't that I was left out. It was realizing that I wasn't even surprised. But the story didn't end there. Days later, a call came that would pull back the curtain on all the secrets my family had been hiding and force me to decide who I really wanted to be. Growing up, I was always the quiet one. Lena Morgan, the dependable daughter. I never missed a birthday, a holiday, or a family chore. If Mom needed someone to help set the table, I was there. If Dad needed help balancing the books for his auto shop, I was there. But none of it seemed to matter. Not when you had Caleb Morgan, the golden boy. Caleb Morgan, the firstborn, the athlete, the charmer. I remember once when we were kids, Caleb Morgan fell off his bike and scraped his knee. My mother rushed outside in a panic, cradling him in her arms as if the world was ending. I watched, from the window, pressing my fingers against the glass, wondering what it would take for anyone to look at me that way. As the years passed, the gap between us widened. Caleb Morgan was the center of every conversation, every dinner table story, every family photo. I was the blurred figure on the edge of the frame. Still, I kept showing up, thinking that one day they would see me. That day never came. It was a Saturday afternoon when everything shifted. I was driving home from a long week at work, passing through my parents' neighborhood, when I saw the cars lining the street. At first, I thought maybe someone on the block was hosting a party. But then I saw the banner, "Congratulations, Caleb Morgan, our pride and joy." My chest tightened. No one had called me. No one had sent a text. I pulled over 2 houses down, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. Through the windshield, I watched people laugh, hug, toast with glasses of champagne. I recognized faces, neighbors, old family friends, church members. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. I sat there until the ache in my chest turned numb. Then, quietly, I drove away. At home, I pulled out a dusty plastic box from under my bed, the one filled with old keepsakes, school awards, birthday cards, faded Polaroids. Near the bottom, I found it. A silver hairpin my mother gave me for my 16th birthday. I remembered her words as she clipped it into my hair. "As long as you wear this, I'll always see you." I ran my fingers over the cool metal and wondered when that promise had faded. When did I become invisible? That night, as I reheated leftover pasta, my phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed across the screen. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something in me, maybe stubborn curiosity, maybe quiet desperation, made me answer. "Lena Morgan?" A man's voice said. "This is Gregory Hale. I'm your family's attorney. I'm so sorry to bother you like this. But we need to talk about the trust papers. There's been some confusion." Confusion. That word rattled in my chest. "I think you should come in," he added softly. "There are things you need to see." The next morning, I sat in my car outside the attorney's office, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly, my knuckles turned white. I had barely slept. My mind kept replaying Gregory Hale's words. There are things you need to see. What did that mean? And why now? Inside, the office smelled of old wood and fresh coffee. Gregory Hale was a kind-looking man in his 60s. His gray hair neatly combed back, his glasses perched on the tip of his nose. He greeted me with a firm handshake and led me to a small conference room. "I'm glad you came, Claire," he said gently, as he laid a thick folder on the table. "Your parents updated their estate plans recently. Everything was transferred to Caleb Morgan. The house, the shop, the savings, the investments." I swallowed hard. "I know," I whispered, my voice raw. "It's always been that way." But then Gregory's expression shifted. "That's the thing," he said quietly. "It wasn't always that way." He pulled out another folder, thinner but marked with the familiar handwriting of my father. "This is the original trust," he explained, "signed years ago. You and Caleb Morgan were equal beneficiaries, 50-50. My head snapped up. "What?" "It seems," Gregory continued, "that somewhere along the way, things were changed, but not cleanly. I have records of certified mail sent to you months ago, which were signed for, but not by you." My heart pounded in my ears. Back in my car, I called the post office. The clerk sounded apologetic, but confirmed it. A change of address form had been submitted, removing my name from our family mail. The signature on the form? Caleb Morgan's. That night, as the sky turned from gold to deep blue, I pulled out old files I had tucked away in my apartment, bills I had helped pay, the mortgage, repairs on the shop, property taxes. During a rough year, I had done it all, without question, because family meant sacrifice. But looking at those papers now, all I felt was a bitter ache in my chest. The next day, I went back to James Reynolds. "I need everything," I told him. "Every document, every signature, every file." He nodded. "Are you sure you're ready, Claire? This won't be easy." I took a deep breath. I've spent my whole life pretending not to see. I think it's time I opened my eyes. We combed through property records, tax filings, bank statements. That's when we found it. A quitclaim deed transferring the family home to Caleb Morgan. The signature on the document was supposed to be my father's. But as soon as I saw it, my stomach dropped. The loops were wrong, the slant was off. And the notary stamp? It belonged to one of Caleb Morgan's old friends from college. It wasn't just favoritism. It was fraud. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just the quiet daughter or the overlooked sister. I was the woman holding the match, staring at the pile of lies my family had built, and I was ready to set it alight. The invitation came on a quiet Sunday morning, in the form of a text message from my mother. "Family dinner tonight. Would love to see you there." No explanation, no apology, just a casual line, as if the past few months hadn't happened. I stood in front of my closet for a long time that evening, my hands hovering over dresses, blouses, jackets. In the end, I chose something simple. Black slacks, a navy blouse, no jewelry. I wasn't going to perform for them. I wasn't there to play the beautiful daughter. I was walking into that house as myself. No more, no less. The house was already filled with laughter when I arrived. I could hear Caleb Morgan's booming voice from the driveway, the clink of glasses, the hum of conversation. As I stepped through the front door, my mother's arms flew open. "Lena Morgan. Oh, sweetheart, it's been too long." For a moment, I just looked at her. The carefully styled hair, the bright coral lipstick, the perfume that hung in the air like a memory. "Hi, Mom," I said softly. Caleb Morgan swaggered over, grinning. Look who finally decided to show up. I gave him a polite smile and handed him a bottle of wine. Nothing expensive, nothing meaningful, just enough to check the box. Dinner passed in, a blur of small talk. My parents cooed over Caleb Morgan's new business plans, his charity work, his weekend in Aspen. I sat quietly, eating small bites, letting their voices wash over me like background noise. But when dessert was cleared, and the plates were stacked away, I pushed my chair back and stood. "There's something we need to discuss," I said calmly, pulling the manila folder from my bag and setting it on the table. Caleb Morgan laughed. "What is this, Claire? A presentation?" I met his eyes, steady and unflinching. "No," I said softly. "It's the truth." One by one, I laid the documents out. The original trust, the fraudulent deed, the notary record. My parents' faces paled. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father leaned back in his chair, eyes wide. Caleb Morgan's smirk faltered, his jaw tightening. "You were never meant to have this, Caleb," Morgan snapped, his voice sharp. "You were always the soft one, the one who'd walk away." I felt something inside me, something quiet, something steady, click into place. "You're right," I said. "I was the soft one. But softness isn't weakness. Caleb Morgan, it's strength that doesn't need to crush to be seen." For the first time in years, the room was silent. No one moved. No one laughed. My mother opened her mouth, but no words came. Nora Whitfield, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, cleared her throat. "Claire," she said gently, "do what you need to do, but don't let this make you bitter. You've always been better than that." I nodded, my throat tight. "I know." That night, as I drove home, the documents sat in the passenger seat. Beside me, a quiet wait. The battle wasn't over. Not yet. Not yet. But for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. The ground steady beneath my feet. The courthouse was quiet when I arrived, the air heavy with anticipation. I stood outside for a moment, watching the sunlight bounce off the glass doors, feeling the weight of the black folder tucked under my arm. This wasn't just about money or property anymore. This was about truth, and finally being seen. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than I expected, almost intimate. My parents sat together, hands clasped tightly, eyes fixed on the floor. Caleb Morgan sat a few feet away, dressed in a sharp gray suit, his jaw clenched, his leg bouncing. Across from them, I took my seat beside James Reynolds, my attorney, who gave me a small, reassuring nod. The judge entered, and the room rose to its feet. As we settled, James stood and began his opening remarks, laying out the facts with calm precision. He spoke of the original trust, the fraudulent transfers, the false signatures. He presented the notary records, the bank statements, the correspondence Caleb Morgan had intercepted. Then came the recordings. Quiet, damning. Moments captured from Caleb Morgan's own careless conversations. His voice filled the courtroom, laughing, dismissing me, bragging about how easy it had been to push me out because I never fought back. As the words echoed through the room, I watched my mother's face crumple, watched my father press a shaking hand to his mouth. Caleb Morgan's shoulder stiffened, his smile vanishing. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly. My hands trembled, at first, but my voice was steady. "I didn't come here today for revenge," I said, scanning their faces. "I came here to reclaim what was mine. Not just the property, not just the trust, but my worth." I spent years believing I wasn't enough, that if I just loved harder, worked harder, gave more, you'd see me. But today, I see myself, and that's enough. The judge ruled swiftly, placing an immediate freeze on the contested assets and opening a formal investigation. As we rose to leave, Caleb Morgan called after me. "Claire, don't do this. You're tearing the family apart." I paused at the door, turning just enough to meet his eyes. "I'm not tearing anything apart," I said quietly. "I'm just refusing to keep it together by sacrificing myself." That evening, I drove to the old family lake house, now legally mine. I sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the trees, the water rippling softly under a pink sky. From my bag, I pulled out something small, a paper crane I had folded as a child, long forgotten in a jewelry box. I set it gently on the porch railing, watching as the breeze tugged at its wings. My phone buzzed beside me, a voicemail from my mother. I let it ring, watching the sky fade to indigo. I didn't need to listen. For the first time in my life, I didn't need their words to know who I was. Because sometimes, the loudest statement you can make isn't slamming a door or shouting in anger. Sometimes, it's the quiet strength of walking away, whole, steady, and finally free. A week after the court ruling, I stood in the living room of the lake house, surrounded by quiet. The walls still carried faint echoes of the past. The laughter from summer barbecues, the piano music Mom used to play, Caleb Morgan's teenage shouts drifting in from the dock. But now, the space felt different. It felt like mine. I walked, slowly through each room, fingertips brushing along familiar door frames, pausing at old photographs where my face was missing or my name had been pushed to the edge. Funny how absence can leave a louder mark than presence. The first night I slept, there alone I expected to feel anger or grief. Instead, what came was stillness. Peace doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it's the soft exhale after years of holding your breath. A few days later, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from Nora Whitfield. Inside was a handwritten note, "Proud of you, not because you fought, but because you fought with grace. Keep that soft heart of yours. It's your superpower." I smiled, tucking the letter into a drawer. There were moments when guilt tried to slip in, whispers in my mind telling me I had broken the family, that maybe I should have stayed silent. But every time I reminded myself of a simple truth. Protecting yourself isn't betrayal, it's survival. The next Sunday, I drove past my parents' house. The lawn was still perfectly trimmed, the porch light glowing softly at dusk. For a split second, I wondered if they were inside, talking about me, if they missed me, if they regretted what had been done. But I didn't stop. I didn't need to. As I turned onto the main road, I felt the sun break through the clouds, warming the windshield, lighting the path ahead. Back at the lake house, I pulled out my old box of keepsakes again. This time, I wasn't looking for proof that I mattered. I was looking for reminders of everything I had always carried within me. The silver hairpin, the old report cards, the faded paper crane. One by one, I placed them on a new shelf, not as evidence of what I had endured, but as symbols of what I had reclaimed. That night, as I stood on the porch with a cup of tea in hand, I watched a group of kids running along the shore, their laughter rising like music into the evening sky. One little girl paused, holding something small and folded in her hands. A paper bird, its wings flapping softly in the breeze. I smiled because I understood I had been the invisible one, the quiet one, the overlooked one. But I was never weak. I was the foundation, the steady heart, the one who learned that you don't have to shout to be heard, and you don't have to stay to prove you belong. Sometimes, the greatest victory is simply walking away. Not with anger, not with vengeance, but with the quiet dignity of someone who has learned at last to choose herself.